Hi, it's Arky 3. Shirley and I recently hiked up this canyon south of this pyramid-shaped peak in the Robledo Mountains. To get there, we went up the lower part of the canyon. It's similar to other trips we've made to this area. In the lower part of the canyon, there's this cut where you can see mosaics in the side of the wall. And below that, there's a tomb in this concrete-like material. The writing here is some sort of ancient writing. It was carved in there when it was wet. It's not vandalism. The whole landscape has been disturbed, and the ground is covered with a stone pavement that forms mosaics. In this south hill, I'll go into that more later. At the confluence of these two washes, there's all this conglomerated material. It's all man-made. It forms all kinds of figures, and it also forms mosaics up close. You can actually see artifacts, and these rocks are painted. You can see by the patterns in the rocks that this is not natural, and you can actually see artifacts. This is the canyon to the right, or the north. You can see the layers of conglomerated material. This is all man-made. I have a whole video about this canyon, how it's all masonry work and how it's all art, and that there are also open tombs in these canyons. You can see the patterns in the rocks up close. And when you do extreme adjusting, you can see all the colors and how the whole bottom part is painted red. You can see the statues made out of this conglomerate. And then when you zoom out, the whole canyon is a piece of art. So we went up the left fork to the south. You can see this stone monument here on the right. And then on the left, it just looks like this ancient workshop. They were putting these rocks together, actually building these blocks out of some sort of material that they were gluing together. You can see the seams in the rocks and the artwork on the rocks. So this whole cliff face is masonry work. It's different types of concrete and mortar and different blocks, some of which I think were actually manufactured. You can see all the artwork built into all this masonry. Even the rocks on the ground form figures. Up at the top, you see all these different characters built out of masonry. So all these things are tombs, and they were building one on top of the other. It's just like the layers of a Mayan pyramid. They would rebuild over things. So down here, there's this pile of rocks I've already done a video on, showing that it's this real different kind of rock art style, this inlay material. All these rocks are coated with this mortar or plaster. They're all carved, painted. There's even mosaics being built on top of some of them. When you look from the side, you see this guy in a blue coat and white pants. Very European looking, wearing a Russian hat. Interestingly enough, I think this blue and white uniform is probably an early Cossack army uniform. So this is where you start to see that you really are in an ancient temple and not some sort of natural erosional feature. You can see the stairway you go up, and there's all these figures carved into all the rocks around here, and it's all painted in the different faces. So you can see at the bottom here, this brown feature that was probably a well and probably also a tomb. And all this stairwell leads up to these temples up here that you can see from above look like the faces of Mongol people or of Cossacks, and that they have very feline type features. And that's a common theme around here is this imagery of Cossacks and of feline features. So let's take a closer look at these faces and see why they look like they do from farther out. What's creating these different patterns and colorations? And you see that it's all painted. Not only that, but there's all this applique material that's carved into different heads and shapes. I believe the surfaces of these stones are some sort of clay material. It's been molded when it was wet and then hardened into stone. You can see the cracks here, that this is a composite material. It's not one large block of stone. And it's all painted with this giant scene. It all forms different faces and figures when you rotate it. Farther up the wash, there are these features. You can see tortoise heads and other serpent heads and animal heads. The lower part of the canyon ends at this 15-foot high dam. It's all man-made. They were doing this to control the flow of the water and slow it all down. Again, these could be some sort of composite blocks and not actual solid pieces of stone. It's all painted. You can see the eyes and faces under every ledge, and in close, all the smaller figures. As we climb out of the canyon, note all the disturbances everywhere. And even the lower ridge lines, the slopes don't look natural. I have a couple videos of this area showing how it is all engineered. So on the ground, you can see all these different colors, and it's all different colored rock that forms mosaics. And from space, it looks like this. So the entire surface of the planet is not a natural thing. It's been modified by man for thousands of years to create this art and also make the land more productive. A new discovery I made this time out are these house floors. This is where the nobility, the elite people lived. They didn't live in pit houses dug into the dirt or in pueblos. That's where all the work was done. That's where the slaves and the serfs lived. The nobility and the elite would have lived in huts and tents up here on the hill. You can see it everywhere. All the disturbances, all the patterns in the landscape, all the patterns in the vegetation, and all the man made lines of rock everywhere. People were living all over this landscape and using every inch of it. That's what you had to do when you want to build an empire. And all this is man made material. All along these washes, this is some sort of composite, conglomerate, concrete like material. And it's all carved and painted. And just like the monuments I showed you below, these are going to look like faces from different angles, different views from different distances. Nothing about this landscape looks right. It's all disturbed. And none of these rocks are rounded and eroded. It's all sharp and fresh looking. So here we are on the south side of this pyramid peak. You can see all the disturbance on the side of the hill, all the different patterns and colors. It all forms different pictures and art. And then when you look closely at all the rocks, it's all masonry work. You can see the different walls, the different chambers, and how they were building these out. These are all tombs, and this is indeed a pyramid. Our own history tells us that pyramids have been mistaken for mountains before. At Teotihuacan, some of the biggest pyramids in Mexico were thought to be mountains until someone tried to put a road through one. This hillside's covered with large loose rocks, and there's a line of yellowish boulders regularly spaced along this ledge, which I think are markers for future tombs, and that some of these stones may actually have indications of who was supposed to be buried there. And I just don't know what to say about this South Hill. It's this giant temple. There's all these masonry characters at the top. It looks like something right out of Mesoamerica. You can see that the whole slope is masonry. The patterns aren't natural, and it creates art. I've shown you tombs farther down. I think these tombs would have been really special people, probably warriors. All over the world, mountains are pyramids and pyramids are mountains. And people are buried in pyramids, and they're buried here in these mountains. It's hard to believe that nobody has seen that these are ancient monuments and not some sort of natural erosional features. Even this lower ridge line, it's all masonry work. You can see the big blocky construction. Below this ridge, there's a pile of rocks, and it's all painted. It's painted with mineral paints that attract different types of lichen, so they were actually using the lichen as an artistic technique. I've seen this at Rincon and also at Peña Blanca. Again, these boulders appear to be masonry features that are built out of multiple parts. Farther down the wash on the south side, another big feature, all full of different statues and characters in masonry. Even a cat's head on top of the ridge. Even farther down the wash, another really cool feature, this open tomb. It's all masonry, it's stone and mortar, even carved statues out of some sort of concrete material. And these blocks are actually masonry features. It's rocks coated with this hard clay-like material that was then carved. And it all turns to a very hard stone-like substance. And all these blocks are carved and painted with these spectacular scenes. And then there's these 3D sculptures. It's all stone and mortar and mosaics. This appears to be some sort of writing, or possibly even musical notes. Detailed little paintings on these rough surfaces. On the other side of the wash, you have these warriors coming right out of the side of the hill. It's pretty obvious that this is some sort of tomb feature. And they're very similar to the characters in the rocks way up on top of that south hill. You can see mosaics around the edges, even a cat's head. All these rocks are painted, and a lot of them are carved into heads. And I have one last feature in this upper part of the South Canyon to show you. It's this masonry artwork right on the side of this hill. There's a nice prehistoric trail that takes you out the south side of this canyon. As you look around, you see that all these hills have been freshly disturbed. There's very little vegetation and there's loose rock everywhere. As you look south towards this peak, you gotta wonder, is this a mountain or is this a pyramid? And I think it's definitely a human-made pyramid. The entire mountain range has been disturbed like I'm showing you in these videos. And it all forms art from different levels all the way into space. And as we make our way home, we contemplate the wondrous things we just saw on this trip.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?